It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on his afternoon drive. Alan, how are we feeling?
I'm tired. It's been a very long 2 days. We wrote at SteelersNow.com yesterday 42 stories. I don't know how many we got up there today, but it's probably at least another 20 or so. There's a bunch more coming. I'm very ready for 4 days off. I can tell you about that.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, add that to the I remember I told you, like, after being at training camp with you for a couple days, just how much appreciation that I had afterwards, kind of seeing what that grind looks like. Well, you know what? Add this period of time to that as well, for sure, with what's been going on the last 48 hours or so. So we're hump day, Wednesday. Alan, if you didn't know, it is Wednesday as we sit here right now. I got a fun fact for you, by the way.
Okay.
And this has absolutely nothing to do with the Steelers, but I know you're a big Ray Davis guy. Would you be able to tell me, without looking, what Ray Davis's actual name is?
Oh, no.
Ray Davis's name is Raymond Walter Zamar Jamar Davis.
Okay.
That is sick. That is an awesome name. I already was a fan, but I don't know how you're not a bigger fan after hearing that.
I don't know. Ray Davis is an interesting backstory. He was in foster care for a while. Was originally from California, ended up on the East Coast. Was one of those kids that had to do a prep year coming out of high school. Went to Temple as a 2-star recruit. Ended up being a Vanderbilt grad and then going to Kentucky on a grad transfer. It's a pretty crazy story. Big fan of Ray Davis.
Awesome stuff. But I saw that and I was like, I got to double check and make sure that this is real. Turns out that it is. That is his entire name. So there's that. Again,
that could be the full government name is a fun bit at times. I feel like we should probably do some research on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster now that it's set and see what we can come up with there.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Just some kind of quick hitter stuff roster-wise before we dig into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. Anthony Averett and Doug Nestor added to the practice squad. Doug Nestor, not a guy coming back, unlike Anthony Averett. But if you remember, Alan, going all the way back to when we had Wesley Yoler on this podcast, literally threw his name out there. So he's the first person that I thought of when they added Doug to the practice squad.
I actually dug up a story Nick Faribaugh did from the Shrine Bowl on Doug Nestor. So he's been on our radar for a while. I covered him when I covered West Virginia last year at that game at TCU. Little did I know while I was covering West Virginia at TCU, I'd be covering 3 members of the 2024 Steelers. Didn't figure that. Doug Nestor is a big friggin' dude. He's about 6'7". Doesn't run that well. I think, it's a little tackle, a little guard. But mostly big, and I think big is its own good sometimes. I think he's played a lot of college football. He's a smart guy. Pretty, if they need some help on the offensive line, he's certainly a kind of call-up option that I think you could feel good about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that depth being tested even more, seemingly here in a little bit down in the episode. But Brandon Johnson, a wide receiver who spent time with Russ in Denver, also added to the practice squad. I don't know, a bit of it. I watched a little bit of him. I didn't have much time here getting off work, but we're recording a little bit later than usual, so I watched a little bit of Brandon Johnson here. I think there's some intrigue there. Alan, I'll be honest, I'm not so sure that he is the worst. Even if he were on the 53-man roster right now, I don't know if he'd be the worst receiver on the 53-man roster. I'm intrigued.
The cousin of Chad Ochocinco Johnson also, which
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's as reported by our Chris
we got all
in the story.
There you go.
You got to have that. I mean, that's played at UCF. And do you want to see the college tape? Is that what you're watching, or were you watching Denver?
No, I was watching Denver. Yeah, when Russ was there.
Played in that absurd Josh Heupel offense at UCF, Tennessee. Crazy tempo. I don't know. He's an interesting guy. I'm I'm not look. It's not solving the Steelers' wide receiver problem.
Sure,
But
right.
It's an interesting.
They did
thing, I'll say that.
They did add a wide receiver named Brandon. That's what everybody was asking for. So there you go. No claims, no waiver claims though, to or from the roster with the Steelers.
Yeah, a little surprised by that. I thought maybe a guy like Rodney Williams would get claimed. I think that's.
I was heartbroken to see Grant DuBose was claimed by Miami, which is one spot behind the Steelers, by the way. Their waiver claim.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'd have put in a claim on Grant DuBose. I think I made that clear yesterday, day before, whenever we were talking about him. I'm a little surprised that the Steelers did not make a claim, given the number of wide receivers that were on that list that seemed like they could be at least upgrades in terms of special teams play, if not both special teams play and actual play. But there's like lots of those guys are vets too. Like guys like Noah Brown haven't signed yet.
Sure.
So maybe they have their sights set on one of those instead. And he's, like we talked about, also a special teams guy, in addition to being a pretty good wide receiver.
I would like to think so. I guess you could look at it two ways, and that's the way that I'm choosing to look at it. Because the other would be they just have a level of comfort with the receiver room that isn't shared from the outside.
You're not going to spend 6 months trying to get Brandon Ayuk and have a level of comfort in the wide receiver room. Those two things are not compatible.
Sure. I 100% agree, but like
you're going to spend 6 months trying to get Brandon Ayuk if you are comfortable with your wide receiver room. Like those two things are not compatible. They may say they're comfortable with their wide receiver room, but it's like they're obviously not. Like what they're willing to do about it, I don't know. I think this sort of Ayuk and nothing strategy, if they don't get him, it's not going to look good in hindsight. I really have said that a lot, but I think it continues to feel that way to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, maybe that wasn't the right wording on my part, but like a marginal upgrade. Like Brandon Ayuk is obviously, it's a clear upgrade for 32 teams in the NFL to add a guy like that. So the Steelers should obviously try to if they can. But, if you're talking about if it's not him, do they feel like there's a guy that's still out there that would be an upgrade over the bottom of their roster? I think so, but that's where I'm saying that's probably the way that I should have worded it as opposed to the comfort level that they have. So I don't know.
Maybe they like Calvin Austin and Scotty Miller a lot more than I think they should. I don't know. It would also be one thing if they had this like nice, well balanced wide receiver room. They just have three of a kind between Miller, Wilson, and Austin that just doesn't even look like it could possibly work like that.
Yeah. And I think that's where the intrigue. Where it's even added for me with a guy like Noah Brown, because you don't have that right now in the room. Like it's just something that you're talking about being added skill set wise, body, like the frame that he brings, the special teams ability. There's something not in that room right now. And while I don't think he's a needle mover at the position, I think he brings what isn't there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's a move worth making, even if you still think you're going to get Brandon Ayuk. Like it doesn't need to be either or.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we've kind of teased the offensive line talk that is going to take place in here, but Isaac Seumalo going down with an injury at today's practice, pec injury. It's already kind of been put, like, I'm sure he's going to get multiple opinions on this or whatever, but doesn't seem like it's going to be season ending. Looks like it'll be about a month or so, I should say, with a pectoral strain, but the hits just keep coming for this offensive line. We've already talked about the tackle situation with 3 of their top 4 being banged up to some degree. Now we're going to talk about Troy here in a little bit. We can talk about Broderick in a little bit. But, man, the depth just continues to get tested, and now it's on the interior as well with Isaac Seumalo going down.
Yeah, I mean, of their top 6 offensive linemen, if you put Fautanu in the top 6 from the start of training camp, one is out for the year, one's out for a month. One's playing hurt and one's questionable for the opener. And if Dylan Cook was the 7th, he's out for 4 weeks too. Like that's a crazy amount of preseason injuries for an offensive line to deal with. Like it went from a position where we were talking about, oh yeah, they could trade from that offensive line to like there was 2 guys out there at tackle today. 2. Like that's it. Like I posted the clip of Dan Moore playing some right tackle. Like the whole world went nuts. Like when you only have 2, you better make sure both can at least do both. Like, like it just, it's like they wanted to give Broderick some reps at left tackle, and there's no one else to play right tackle, especially with Spencer Anderson. Now looks like the starting left tackle. So, not a lot of leftover depth in that offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's the other part of it too. There was a conversation taking place about would it be Spencer Anderson, would it be Mason McCormick? I'm under the impression, especially people that I talked to, not only because, well, I mean, even if you could look at the reps that they've taken to kind of get an idea, like Spencer Anderson, I believe will be that first guy to get a crack week 1 in Atlanta.
Yeah, he's been really good this year. I think the move to guard, mostly full-time, really helped him hone in on one position. I think he's been the most improved player on that offensive line this year. He looks really good. Not so great at tackle when he had to play there after all the injuries, but I think his guard play has been really solid. He was a guy that only made the first 53 I had getting cut. Now he's going to be starting week 1. That's how far we've gone down the offensive line depth chart. I think he's a pretty good player, though. You know, it's like, yeah, nobody wants injuries, but if there was a place the Steelers could afford to have injuries pile up, the offensive line was one of them. I don't know that Pat Myers in his office right now just like, you know, puking his guts out because Spencer Anderson has to start. Like, I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I was like completely. You said one of the guys out for the season. I was like sitting here thinking I completely forgot like the Nate Herbig injury as well. Yeah, like the interior.
Yeah, because
it
would have been Herbig to replace Seumalo. Like if Seumalo had been hurt before, as Herbig would have been the first guy in, and he's already out.
Yeah. So I know that I had asked you this, I think it was yesterday, if not yesterday, it was Monday, about kind of the tackle situation already because of what we were dealing with. But, you know, now if you don't even have Anderson to start getting those reps because he kind of has to really just hone in on guard, like you got to expect that they're going to add a tackle at some point, right? If nothing else, just because you can't have 2 tackles being the only guys in practice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Seumalo is going to miss a month, he's going to go in the IR and they're going to sign somebody from somewhere. I mean, who's healthy right now? I mean, it's Moore, Jones, sort of, Frazier, Anderson, Daniels, McCormick, McCollum. That's not even enough to play a game. Like you got to get one more in there, at least, maybe 2 more in there. To be honest, yeah, I think you're going to see some roster moves here before the opener for sure. I don't know. I mean, if there was one that got like. Tykeem Doss was the last guy to get cut on that offensive line. I guess you could bring him back if you need a tackle. I think I would aim higher. I think I would try to find somebody with a little more experience if you really feel like you're scrambling. We said yesterday, I don't even know that McCollum was the guy that I think should feel super safe about his spot on the line. And now all of a sudden it's like he wouldn't dare cut him. Like it's not like that's some kind of dominant backup player. You know, he's been on the practice squad a couple of years. Does have a little bit of NFL experience, but he's not a guy I feel like people have been pounding the table to see.
Sure. I was going to ask, you might have answered this with a Tykeem Doss shout, but I was going to ask if you thought there was a guy internally already on the practice squad that you thought would be the first to get a look if they needed a body at tackle.
No, I wasn't really very impressed with any of the guys they had at tackle. If they feel like they need a guard because of Seumalo, I like Joey Fisher. I think you can keep him around. But I wasn't particularly overwhelmed by the tackles that they had in here.
How quickly do you think a guy like Doug Nestor, who was just brought in, can kind of get up to speed to contribute if they needed him to?
A guard pretty quickly. Tackle might take a while. You know, it's not like they run some kind of super complicated offense. Like they're doing a lot of things that a lot of other schemes are doing. Nestor's in the Vikings, so that's like sort of similar. Like there's a bunch of Shanahan McVay stuff there, which is, I think Arthur Smith uses a lot of that terminology. It's hard to say. I mean, the big problem is that Doug Nestor's an undrafted rookie who's never played an NFL game, more so than he's new to the team. I think that's probably the bigger issue there.
Yeah, I guess for me, I was trying to not necessarily think about Nestor specifically or even just like this offense specifically, but just kind of go back and think about times where you see a guy like this added at this point on the calendar and think about what that timeline normally looks like. But again, like, I don't know, I'm not going to call the Steelers situation rare, but with guys dropping the way that they have on the offensive line, like, I don't know, we're like we keep saying, we're already getting pretty thin there. So,
they got 3 7th-round picks next year. It's not crazy
yeah.
to me they could flip one of them for some backup veteran offensive lineman if they, especially if Seumalo is going to miss a month or more.
We're talking about like a
like
Jesse Davis type trade.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
There you go. I want to mention that name as much as possible on here now. Which, by the way, I think he just got cut from wherever he was at. Was it the Saints? I think he was cut yesterday.
They could have Jesse Davis then. They could just sign him. You know who did? Oh, I saw got cut yesterday. John LeGlue, who was like a 5-position guy, was here on the Steelers practice squad. Couldn't hurt. I'd bring him back. I thought he was a good player.
Yeah, what was that? Was that 2021 where he made the starts down the stretch? I think
he was here for like 2 seasons, 3 seasons, maybe like 19, 20. Came in at the very end of 2019, and then all 2020 was on the practice squad, then played some in 2021, I think. That sounds right.
Yeah. I believe so. But as far as like Isaac goes, and kind of Spencer Anderson.
See Tulane guy? Because that's he's a Tulane guy, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And the Steelers cut Deuce Watts, so Omar is below his par of Tulane alumni on the roster, so you can see that as well.
Yeah, he played all 4 years at Tulane. 38 starts, 49 games.
There you go.
Yeah. Number 5 rushing.
I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I remember where a former Steelers practice squad offensive lineman went to college. That's what's up here.
That's the Rolodex. That's what's important up there. Going back to Spencer, you've kind of been talking up Spencer Anderson's entire offseason, the way that he's looked, most improved player. So what would be your level of comfort, assuming that it's going to be him for about 4 weeks in Isaac Seumalo's place?
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not too worried about Spencer Anderson. I think he'll be fine. Pass protection's not like outstanding, but I think the thing about Spencer Anderson that makes me feel okay with him as a backup is like, I know you're not going to get like outstanding play, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's very steady. He's just very, this sounds like it's a dig, but trust me, as an offensive lineman, it's not. He's very average. He's just, you know what you're going to get. It's not going to be outstanding, but it's probably going to be okay. And I think you can scheme around that and game plan around that pretty well. Like for backup offensive linemen, that's average is definitely a compliment because a lot of backup offensive linemen are all over the place. They might look like they're great one snap, and then your quarterback's laying in 7 different pieces in the backfield the next one. You don't want that. Yeah. You'll take average if that's what you're going to get.
Sure, absolutely. Sticking with the offensive line stuff, this is the last thing, unless you had anything else regarding Seumalo or anything else. I just wanted to bring up Troy Fautanu saying that he was going to get back to practice next week. We saw some clips from you as well as some other people of him moving around a little bit, but that will certainly be a welcome sight, and it makes things very interesting if he's physically going to be able to go for week 1, how that ends up shaking out.
Right now, I think I'd have a hard time seeing him start week 1 just because he hasn't practiced in – it'll be now 3 weeks. That'll be a tough ask. I know Broderick's been struggling with that elbow, but I still think I would go more at left tackle, Jones at right tackle as things stand right now. Let him get at least a couple of practices under his belt. Like a regular – that's the other thing is like a regular season Friday is basically not really a practice. Like nothing is happening Friday. So if he goes Monday, he might get 3 practices. I don't know. That's just and I'll be honest. Like he doesn't look like a guy. Didn't look like a guy to me who was like, almost all the way back. Like I would say that compared to like Jalen Warren, does not look quite as ready. Warren looks like he can play tomorrow. Fautanu, he's still like gingerly moving out there. I think I'd be questionable.
But probably healthy enough to be the third tackle.
maybe. Yeah, I mean, if he's cleared by then yeah. But you're not going to let him to do much more than that if he hasn't practiced that much, or if his practices are less than 100%, things like that. Practicing on a Friday where it's just basically a walkthrough, that doesn't really count. Like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know what the Steelers are thinking about Broderick Jones and his elbow, and when how sort of much of a disaster they think that's going to be. Obviously didn't go well in the preseason. Can he get the brace off too? I mean, that's a big question. The last time I talked to him about it, he said there was still some hope that he would be able to take it off in the regular season. I think he's kind of since then, talking to other people, I wasn't in his scrum today, kind of sort of walked that back where it doesn't look like it's going to be able to come off at the very beginning. But if he can get the brace off, I think that'd go a long way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, the way that he's talked about it, the way that we can see that it's limiting him, his hand placement and stuff like that. So absolutely. It's funny because I was sitting here looking at like the notes for the show, and I saw Cam contract is the next thing, and it's almost like you feel like the Brandon Ayuk stuff, no update. And with Cam's contract, what did he say, Alan?
No update. No update. I thought it was interesting. He did talk about why he didn't want to hold out. He did say in there that like he felt like that he needed to prove that he was healthy after what happened last year, and that he wants to. He's going to be on this team this year no matter what, and it's not like a Brandon Ayuk situation where he's saying, "If you won't give me a new deal, trade me." Cam is saying, "I'm playing for the Steelers in 2024 no matter what." And so I want to help the team be successful. I know I'm going to be a part of it. I want to do everything I can to help the team be successful. So that's not really going to be for me. Also, like, while I think that stance is laudable, like, let's be honest, Cam does not a whole lot of practice. Like, the Steelers, it's not like they're asking him to do much. And that's okay. That's the way it should be for veteran guys. I just think, don't take it out of context either.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that is interesting because I really just thought it was literally just going to be saying there's no update on the contract and that was it, and we move on to the next thing. But yeah, I mean, I gotta applaud him. I think that it's important for him to be there and say and do those things. So there's that. And then Alan, the final thing that we wanted to bring up here, official. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while. It could have been named a month ago and wouldn't have surprised us. Russell Wilson, the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Week 1.
When you actually said the final thing you want to talk about, I forgot what it was going to be. I was like, wait, what is he talking about?
Because it's,
I forgot. I was like, there was something else. Oh, yeah, right, that.
Yeah. Anything to say or add on this? Because again, it's been, we felt this way the entire time.
I mean, we all knew it was coming. I'll say that I think, I don't really understand the length of time that it took them to make this decision. I feel like I've pretty steadfast been saying that, like, yes, this was a real competition. Yes, there was a chance for Justin Fields to win it, but it's been pretty clear for about 2 weeks now that he wasn't gonna, no matter what. And so, I don't know why they felt the need to drag it on this long. The most interesting thing I heard today in that conversation was that Mike Tomlin seems very open to the idea of using Justin Fields for some kind of package, whether that's as a quarterback or something else. And my favorite quote about that was he said, I'm not going to tell you what we might have planned because it doesn't do me any good to give my intentions away. So speculate away. That's what he said. So let's speculate away where and how should the Steelers use Justin Fields?
Oh, you know what? I want to say this just because I know that it will upset people because, again, good play, but they think it's cursed. Jet sweeps with Justin Fields being given the ball by Russell Wilson.
So he's going to line up at wide receiver and take jet sweeps.
Yeah.
I think you should line up. Okay, if Justin Fields had spent the entire offseason playing wide receiver, He is wide receiver blank on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Man, I feel like I'm doing such a disservice to the actual guys that have been playing wide receiver in that room. But 3 or 4?
Oh, I'm saying 2.
Really?
I don't think you're doing a disservice. I'm saying 2.
All right.
If Justin Fields had spent the entire offseason a wide receiver, I think it'd be the second best wide receiver on the team. Yeah. And it'd be closer to George than to 3. That's what I think. He's the best athlete on the team. He's the best athlete on the team. And no one is even close. Like, yeah, I think you should play some wide receiver. Yeah, I think you should run some jet sweeps. Yeah, I think you should return kickoffs.
That's the other thing. Like we were talking about that as a joke, but with like, hey, if it's not, we haven't seen Cordell Patterson do it. Like,
and the
Warren guy that was doing.
I mean, I think Jalen Warren's a good option, but are you going to want a guy coming off a hamstring injury, like to go return kicks? Like probably not. Heck yeah, I'm putting Justin Fields out there in all those situations.
I want to see it.
Punt gunner.
No.
Can he cover a kick?
Yeah.
I mean,
test it out.
He's definitely faster and bigger than Scotty Miller. Like there's no question that like the athletic person, would be way better at that job than Scotty Miller. There's no doubt in my mind. Does he want to do it? Does he want to go tackle people? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. But like, yeah, they got to find a way to use him. Short yardage, any short yardage play should be Justin Fields because you have to respect the quarterback sneak. They know they're not going to want to put Russell Wilson under the pile. He's 35 years old. He already hurt his calf pushing the sled. We're not pushing him. We're not doing the Philly play, the butt shove, whatever you call it. We're not doing that with Russell Wilson. But put Justin Fields in there? Absolutely. We'll push him all the way down the field if we have to. Or he can pull it out and run quarterback draw or quarterback power. I think he should be in for every short yardage play.
I agree. I mean, I've been pushing that for a while. Yeah. Like I've been saying that for even when I assumed Russ was going to be the starting quarterback, I was like, short yardage, even do some designed runs with him at quarterback. But now I got this jet sweep thing in my mind as well. So yeah, I'm using him in a variety of different ways. And we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Quarterback, I don't know, whatever. Like even if you just bring him in for a series as like a changeup, I'm okay with that too. Like I'm very okay with bring him in for a series and run like college offense. Run like just quarterback run, RPO, quarterback run. Just like. And Arthur Smith is the kind of offensive coordinator that absolutely would do that stuff too. Like it's not like I'm saying this out loud and I know that the Steelers just be like, no. Like he was criticized in Atlanta for being like way too in his bag with his play calls. This is the perfect amount of in his bag. Like you have a team that's short on playmakers. You have the best athlete on the team on the sideline. Fix it.
Especially, and let me say this too, something that kind of occurred to me, because my first thought was, is it something that for themselves they would have kind of wanted to mess around with prior to the opener, but they also probably don't want to put that on tape for other teams to see, especially Atlanta, who they're going to play in week 1, Arthur's old team, really dive into those baggy tricks. Let's see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why you didn't see a lot of that stuff in the preseason. There's all kinds of stuff that I saw at OTAs and training camp that we didn't see in the preseason, and that's mostly because of Atlanta. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think they absolutely should. And look, like Russell Wilson might be the present. He sure is not the future. Like they want to find a way to get a look at Justin Fields in some regular season action and see what kind of player they have. You can't just depend on Russ getting hurt for that opportunity. This is a way to ensure you get it.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we see them break it out. Alan, great conversation as always. Tell the people where they can find you.
Is it over already? Jeez.
It's over already.
I'm not home yet. The traffic must have been worse than usual. At @Saunders_PGH. on X, Instagram, and TikTok. The PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. It's where the words live. Read them so I can get paid. Sign up for SN Plus, and you'll get our new feature, Southside Scoop, which is all the cool little tidbits I get from in the locker room and my own observations from practice, the ones that I haven't already shared with y'all here. That's for SN Plus subscribers. Should be coming out tomorrow. And then, obviously, all the great film breakdowns and everything from Derek Bell in there as well. Follow us on TikTok at Steelers Afternoon Drive. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode of Afternoon Drive, Morning Rush, the practice sights and sounds, interviews, post-game, whatever other stuff we got going on here on the YouTube channel. Don't miss it.
There you go. And also, if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you need your podcast from, you can find us there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Also, if you're there, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe over there, do all that good stuff for us as well. And you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.